Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S.-Israeli war on Iran has entered its fifth day with the U.S. and Israel new waves of intense bombing targeting Tehran and other areas. The reported death toll in Iran has risen to 1,045. U.S. forces say they've struck more than 2,000 targets since Saturday. Israel's also escalating its attack on Lebanon, where it's ordered mass evacuations. Iran's continuing to retaliate by attacking Israeli and U.S. allies across the Gulf. Targets reportedly struck by Iran include the U.S. Embassy and CIA station in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the U.S. consulate grounds in Dubai, and a major U.S. airbase in Qatar. Earlier today, Iran's Revolutionary Guard threatened the, quote, complete destruction of the region's military and economic infrastructure, unquote. Meanwhile, an Iranian naval ship has sunk in the Indian Ocean off the southern coast of Sri Lanka after a possible submarine attack. 30 people have survived. 140 others are still missing. Reuters reports sources in Sri Lanka's Navy and Defense Ministry said the vessel had been attacked by a submarine. This comes days after President Trump vowed to annihilate Iran's Navy. Iranian officials are expected to soon pick a new supreme leader to replace Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was assassinated Saturday at the start of the U.S.-Israeli attack. Israel's already announced Khamenei's successor will become a, quote, unequivocal target for elimination, unquote. Israel has already bombed the Assembly of Experts building in Qom, where the decision was expected to be made. On Tuesday, President Trump said U.S. and Israeli strikes have already killed off many possible future leaders in Iran.
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, you know, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody.
This comes as CNN is reporting the CIA is now working to funnel arms to Iranian Kurdish militias in an attempt to spark an uprising in Iran. On Tuesday, Trump reportedly spoke to the president of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, which is considered a terrorist organization in Iran. Iranian forces have been launching drone strikes on Kurdish forces in northern Iraq. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, Democratic senators are expressing alarm after receiving a classified briefing ahead of today's War Powers Resolution vote. This is Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal.
I just want to say I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground.
Senator Elizabeth Warren posted this message online after the briefing.
I just left a classified briefing on Iran, and here's what I can say. It is so much worse than you thought. You are right to be worried. Trump administration has no plan in Iran. This illegal war is based on lies, and it was launched without any imminent threat to our nation. Donald Trump still hasn't given a single clear reason for this war, and he seems to have no plan for how to end it either.
President Trump's threatening to cut off trade with Spain after the Spanish government refused to allow the U.S. to use naval and air bases in southern Spain to strike Iran. Earlier today, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called the U.S.-Israeli war a disaster.
We must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions of people. The powers involved in this conflict must immediately cease hostilities and commit to dialogue and diplomacy.
In Pakistan, the U.S. has ordered some consular staff in Karachi and Lahore to leave Pakistan due to safety risks. Large anti-U.S. protests have erupted in recent days. Reuters is reporting U.S. Marines opened fire on Pakistani demonstrators who tried to storm the Karachi consulate. 10 people were killed during that attack on Sunday. Anti-U.S. protests are continuing in Pakistan, which is home to the world's second-largest Shia community after Iran.
We're here today to protest the American-Israeli strike on Iran. In an act of sheer hypocrisy, they bombed a girls' school, killing over 150 innocent children, while claiming to advocate for women's liberation. We are here to condemn this atrocity.
The Military Religious Freedom Foundation says it's been inundated with over 200 calls from members of the U.S. military regarding religious comments made by U.S. commanders about the war in Iran. One combat unit commander reportedly said the war is, quote, part of God's divine plan, and that, quote, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth. Unquote. Last month, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth invited the controversial Christian nationalist pastor Doug Wilson to lead the Pentagon's prayer service. Wilson has opposed Muslims holding public office and does not believe women should be allowed to vote. The Pentagon has announced U.S. Special Forces are now in Ecuador to conduct joint military operations with Ecuadorian commandos to reportedly target suspected drug traffickers. The head of U.S. Southern Command and the top commander of U.S. Special Forces in Latin America met with Ecuador's right-wing president, Daniel Noboa, in Quito on Monday. Last year, Noboa proposed a constitutional change to allow the U.S. to operate a military base in Ecuador, but voters rejected the proposal. The deployment of U.S. troops to Ecuador marks a new front in the Trump administration's so-called Operation Southern Spear. Since September, the U.S. has blown up at least 44 boats in the region, killing at least 150 people. Without offering proof, the Trump administration's claimed all the targets were drug traffickers. The 2026 midterm campaign kicked off Tuesday with primaries in Texas, North Carolina, and Arkansas. In Texas, Democratic state legislator and former seminarian James Tallarico is projected to have defeated Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in the closely watched Democratic Senate primary. Tallarico spoke to supporters in Austin.
This is a people-powered movement to take on this broken, corrupt, political system. This is truly a campaign of, by, and for the people.
Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett decried voting disruptions in Dallas County, where hundreds of voters are reportedly turned away from polls.
I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The reason that we knew that there were problems is because we were receiving the phone calls and the emails. The polls were supposed to stay open until 9, according to a court order. The Supreme Court, just a few minutes ago, just said, shut it down.
In the Republican Texas Senate primary, Senator John Cornyn and State Attorney General Ken Paxton are heading for a runoff on May 26. Their race is already the most expensive Senate primary in history. Meanwhile, Republican incumbent Congressmember Dan Crenshaw lost his primary to Texas State Representative Steve Toth. Another Republican incumbent congressman, Tony Gonzalez, has been forced into a runoff. Reports recently emerged that he had an affair with a staffer who later took her own life. In North Carolina, the matchup to replace retiring Republican Senator Thom Tillis is now set. Former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper will face off against Michael Whatley, a former Trump Republican National Committee chairman. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem testified on Capitol Hill Tuesday, grilled about the killings by federal agents of Renee Good and Alex Preti in Minneapolis, but she refused to apologize for linking them to domestic terrorism. She was questioned by Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois.
Can you explain why you decided to brand these victims that we all saw on video who were out protesting the activities of your agency and were killed as a result of it? How did you think that calling them domestic terrorists at that scene was somehow going to calm the situation?
You know, Senator, we are working in those situations where there's a tragic loss of life and that there is something that our agents are involved in, that we continue to deliver information.
Senator Amy Klobuchar questioned Noem about armed masked agents in St. Paul, Minnesota, battering down the door of a home of a U.S. citizen from Laos, even though the agents did not have a warrant.
Do you agree that it is unacceptable for your agents to ram into someone's door and drag someone out in their underwear in below zero temperatures when they have the wrong guy?
Our officers conduct targeted operations and utilize the law processes that are given to them and the
answer
tools.
That you think that's wrong.
They needed to identify that individual, and
they couldn't identify him by looking at his identification. Instead, they had to drag him out, throw him in a car, and drive him around for an hour.
In Arizona, a Haitian asylum seeker has died in ICE custody after being held for 4 months at the Florence Correctional Center. One local official said the man, Emmanuel Damas, had died after not getting timely medical care for an infected tooth. He's at least the 10th prisoner to die in ICE custody so far this year. And in Georgia, the father of an accused school shooter has been convicted of second-degree murder for giving his teenage son an AR-15-style rifle as a Christmas gift. Colin Gray's son, who was 14 at the time, is accused of using the gun to kill 2 students and 2 teachers at a high school in Winder, Georgia in 2024. Prosecutors accuse the father of ignoring his son's emotional problems, including his obsession with school shooters. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.